Thank you for joining us here on the Screen Team. My name is Chris, and I'm being joined by Jamie for our first couple of reviews for you this evening. And I've got to say, our first review is a movie that is probably... Is it the worst movie of all time, Jamie? Is it the worst movie of all time?
Boy, it's pretty close.
It's pretty close.
I haven't seen every movie that exists, but boy, let me tell you, of all the movies I have seen...
This one's the worst.
This one's pretty bad. I don't know if it's quite the worst. There was a movie I saw, man, when I was around 20, 21 years old, and it was pretty bad. It was one of those where I saw it. It came on cable after 2 years or whatever after it was in the theater, and it has been edited for television, and that didn't help. It did, and I can't even remember what that movie was, but I thought, wow, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. I think that one still reigns number one, but this is a close second.
Yeah. The movie we're talking about is The Room, and we're not talking about Room with Brie Larson, which was actually a great film and was nominated for tons of awards. This one's just called The Room.
The Room.
And it was a movie that stars, I believe it was directed and also written by...
Produced. His name appears in the credits like 1,000 times. Yeah.
His name is Tommy Wiseau, right?
Yeah.
And Tommy is an interesting character, to say the least.
Yeah.
He is... This is a difficult review because I don't know where to begin with this movie. When you start watching this movie... It feels... tell me about this movie, Jamie.
Man, I tell you what, it's... One of the most amazing things about this movie is that it exists in the first place.
Sure.
A lot of people know of this movie because of the movie that was made recently, The Disaster Artist, which we will also review momentarily.
Sure.
So they went back and found this movie... And one of the strangest aspects of it is this guy, Tommy, that wrote, directed, produced, acted in, starred in, and it's basically his baby, It was his idea, and he kind of had his friend Greg that he wanted to make a movie with, and they did it.
Yeah.
And it's like it says something about the his tenacity and willingness to like do what it takes. So it is kind of amazing that it exists in the first place. But when you watch it, you're like, why does this exist?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people in this world that feel that they're creative or want to be creative and put their best effort into it, and then this is what happens. This is the kind of thing. That's the end result. So he gets lots of props and kudos from me for completing a project and it actually sticking around. That's one of the things that I've seen people reference. They're like, say what you will about Tommy Wiseau, his movie's still selling.
That's true.
And because it opened to like limited theaters, and when its first run, I mean it tanked hard. Like people talk about. I just saw somebody reference the Han Solo movie saying, "Oh, it only made $150 million this week." It's like, oh, okay.
Poor Disney.
Poor Disney. Tommy would have been happy with $1,500 probably when his movie opened. And this was in, 2000,
2001, somewhere around there. Yeah.
But, like, the funny thing is, like, he did all this in L.A. and San Francisco, and... other Hollywood types saw this movie. James Franco saw this movie, and then when the book came out about this movie and the guys, he's like, we got to do this. We got to make a movie about this movie.
Jamie, when we're on this show and we review movies, we find critiques with some of them. We say, the acting was bad, or the script wasn't nearly as good, or it just didn't flow well. What is it about this movie that makes it so bad? What's the element?
Oh, man.
Or is it It's everything?
It's everything. Yeah, it's a combination of just bad acting and what's kind of interesting also when you watch the film, it's like, they put some production value into it. You could tell they spent a little bit of money, but everything as a whole is just so bad. You're like, oh, it seems like such a waste.
Yeah.
The acting, nobody in the movie really does a great job of acting. Greg Sestero is probably the best actor in the whole film.
Oh, hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg. Yeah. You'll know if you watch it.
Oh my goodness!
But
wow.
so it's and you're kind of cringing, but you're like, I kind of want to see what happens in the next scene.
Yeah,
because there's no real the story. There's nothing to really hold it all together. It's just like they took a bunch of little scenes, like, oh, we gotta have a scene with a mom and the daughter, blah blah blah. And then, okay, get in here, sit there. Action, and they just did it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, we'll edit that later. We'll fix that or whatever.
And there was story points to what Jamie was saying that make no sense at all to the rest of the film, or is not brought up again. You say the mother and the daughter, they have a scene. How are things going with Tommy? How's the relationship going? Oh,
Johnny
fine.
Johnny is what his name is
Johnny
in the movie.
And they're talking about the relationship, and then they're like, well, how did your doctor's visits go, Mom? Oh, they found out that I have cancer.
Oh, no, it's not. I'm not laughing at the cancer. But yeah,
and
then
like,
it's never brought up again. And then her mom continues to give her advice about, he's a good man, and he's got a good job. And it's like, wow, are you from like the 1940s? Oh, stick with it, hon. I don't know. It was so backwards. Like, just the storytelling in it is just so all over the place.
Yeah.
The thug. Man, that's one of my favorite parts in the other movie in The Disaster Artist. There's a thug, and you just gotta see. You gotta see both these movies. If you're gonna watch both of them, watch The Room first, as cringing and
it's cringing
as it is, and then watch The Disaster Artist, and you will have a blast because all the stuff that they reference in The Disaster Artist is right there in The Room.
Right.
And just watching, like, even some of the actors they got to be in Disaster Artist, which I'm like, we're almost turning this into a review for that. But, yeah, but The Room, you got to start with The Room.
Jamie's right. This movie is so... Go ahead. Go ahead,
if I know you, I will let you borrow my Blu-ray, which my wife got for me, especially for my birthday. And it as a bonus, this came with a pair of underwear.
It did not, did it?
I swear it did. I promise. Tommy Wiseau, to help finance this movie, and among other things, he's got a TV show and he's got a web series. Man, this guy is like he's avant-garde or something.
He is an interesting personality. And what makes this film so specially bad, I think, is if... you got some of the best directors in the world, the Spielberg or Chris Nolan, and you're like, okay, guys, we have a project for you. We want you to make the worst movie, make a movie and make it as bad as you can. It still wouldn't come anywhere close to that.
It wouldn't be as good as,
exactly.
This in a bad way,
But the movie has got... some violence, if you can call it that. It's got language. It's got some scenes of sexuality. And let me just point out something very quickly, okay? I'm not going to speak for Jamie or any other man in the world. I'm going to speak for myself here. Whenever, we're watching a movie or any movie and a love scene comes on, I'm thinking, all right, giddy up, right? Not with this movie. This movie is so cringeworthy that even the love scenes in this movie were so bad you had to fast forward. This movie is special in a bad, bad way. It's called The Room, and like Jamie says, if you're brave enough to give it a watch, try it.
Go for it.
Try it. All right. We're gonna talk about The Disaster Artist, which is a film based on the book about The Room, and we'll check that out next right here on the Screen Team.